I was sick, exhausted, and forced to parent my mom's kids. Then she started yelling at me. I, 14F, am writing this from the floor of my bathroom. The tiles are cold, and honestly, they are the only thing keeping me grounded right now. My hands are shaking, partly from the fever that feels like it's baking my brain from the inside out, and partly from the sheer, raw adrenaline of finally screaming at my mother. I'm getting mixed messages from every adult in this house, and I've reached a point where I don't even know what normal looks like anymore. My mom, 38, is a hardworking, dedicated woman. I want to make that clear because if I don't, I feel like a monster. I admire her. I respect the fact that she carries the weight of this family on her shoulders. I love her. But for the past 4 days, I have been fighting a losing battle against a virus that has turned my body into a prison. I'm talking full body aches that make my bones feel like they're made of lead. I'm talking about the kind of dizziness where if I turn my head too fast, the room does a 360-degree spin, and I have to grab the nearest wall to keep from face-planting. I haven't tasted food in 72 hours. Everything tastes like ash or copper. I've been nauseous, weak, and desperate for just one full day of uninterrupted sleep. I'm the responsible child. In this house, that's a dangerous title to have. It means I'm the one who remembers where the spare keys are, the one who knows when the cat needs its medicine, and the one who handles my business without being asked. My mom and the other adults, my brother, 20, and my sister, 19, are the night owls. They stay up until the sun starts peeking through the blinds. 1 a.m., 4 a.m., sometimes 6 a.m. I don't care what they do with their time. Usually, I just stay in my lane. But usually doesn't apply when you're running a 101-degree fever and 4 kids under the age of 8 are treating you like a jungle gym. The sun wasn't even fully up when I heard the first thud. It was the 8-year-old. He's the oldest of the little ones, and he's like a pioneer of chaos. I heard his feet hit the floorboards in the room next to mine, followed immediately by the high-pitched, warbling cry of the 1-year-old. I checked my phone. 6:12 a.m. My head throbbed in time with the baby's cries. I pulled the covers over my head, praying, literally praying, that one of the 3 adults who had been up until 5 a.m. would hear her. I waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. The crying transitioned from a whimper to a full-blown, lung-busting scream. I dragged myself out of bed. My feet hit the floor, and for a second, I thought I was going to pass out. The world tilted left. I gripped the edge of my dresser until the gray spots in my vision cleared. I walked into the living room, and it was like walking into a war zone that hadn't even started yet. The baby was standing in her crib, face red, tears tracking through the crust to her eyes. The 8-year-old was in the kitchen, dragging a heavy chair across the linoleum floor so he could reach the high cupboard where the cereal is kept. The sound of the chair legs screeching against the floor felt like a serrated knife across my nerves. "Hey," I rasped. My voice was almost gone. "Get down. I'll get it." I changed the baby first. I had to hold my breath because the smell made my stomach do a somersault. As I was pinning the diaper, the 4-year-old and the 5-year-old came running out of their room. They are the chipmunks. They don't walk, they vibrate. They immediately started wrestling on the rug, knocking over a lamp that I barely caught before it smashed. "Mom," I called out, leaning toward her bedroom door. Silence. Not even the sound of her shifting in bed. Her door was locked. It's always locked. By 9:30 a.m., I was a shell of a human being. I had managed to get bowls of cereal in front of the 3 older ones, but the 4-year-old had already managed to spill half of his on the rug. I was on my hands and knees with a damp cloth, scrubbing milk out of the carpet fibers. Every time I put my head down, the pressure in my sinuses felt like it was going to explode. I looked at the hallway. My brother's door was shut. My sister's door was shut. They were probably in the deepest part of their sleep cycle, totally oblivious to the fact that their 14-year-old sister was failing to keep the house from burning down. The kids were bored. Bored kids are dangerous. The 8-year-old decided he wanted to play superheroes, which apparently involves jumping off the back of the sofa. "Stop," I yelled, but it came out as a weak cough. I had to physically haul him off the furniture. He kicked me in the shin by accident, and I just sat there on the floor and cried for a second. He didn't even notice. He just ran off to find a cape. I fed the cats. Their food bowl was bone dry, and they were weaving between my legs, nearly tripping me every time I moved. The smell of the wet cat food was the final straw. I ran to the bathroom and dry heaved for 5 minutes. When I came out, the 5-year-old had found a Sharpie. I spent the next 45 minutes scrubbing black ink off the coffee table while the baby screamed because she wanted to be held. I couldn't hold her. I didn't have the strength in my arms to carry 15 pounds of squirming toddler. I felt like the worst sister in the world. 11 a.m. is the time mom is supposed to wake up. It's the unwritten rule. I kept glancing at the clock. 11:05, 11:15, 11:30. The kids were getting restless. They wanted lunch. I went back into the kitchen. I felt like a zombie. I was moving in slow motion. I made 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I cut the crusts off. I got the juice boxes. I did all the mom things while my own mother was 10 feet away behind a mahogany door, dreaming. I thought about pounding on her door. I really did. But I know how it goes. If I wake her up, she's exhausted. If I wake up my brother, he's stressed from work. He works part-time. If I wake up my sister, she tells me to shut up and deal with it. I am the path of least resistance. I am the one who makes things easy for everyone else. By 12:45 p.m., I was sitting on the kitchen floor because the chairs felt too far away. The 1-year-old was sitting in her high chair, smeared with jelly, starting to do that rhythmic whine that means a nap is overdue. The hour between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. felt like a lifetime. The house was a disaster. There were toys in the hallway, crumbs on every surface, and the sink was full of the morning's dishes. I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't. I sat the baby on the floor with some blocks and leaned my head against the cool metal of the refrigerator. I think I fell asleep for a second, a micronap, because I startled awake to the sound of something breaking. The 4-year-old had dropped a ceramic mug. I didn't even get mad. I just stared at the shards. I felt numb. I swept up the glass, my hands shaking so hard the broom was rattling. My fever was peaking. I could feel the heat radiating off my neck. I looked in the mirror in the hallway and didn't recognize myself. My eyes were sunken, my skin was pale, and my hair was a bird's nest. I went to make the baby a final bottle before her nap. The kitchen was a mess. The formula tin was almost empty. As I was trying to level off a scoop, the baby let out a scream so loud it felt like it pierced my eardrums. And then the door clicked. My mom walked out. She looked fine. She looked rested. She looked like someone who hadn't spent the last 8 hours being a human shield against 4 tiny terrors. She didn't look at me. She didn't see that I was shivering in a room that was 75 degrees. She looked at the floor. She looked at the crumbs. She looked at the toy cars scattered across the rug. "What is this?" she demanded. Her voice was sharp, like a whip. "The house is a wreck. Why is the baby screaming? Have you just been sitting here? This is neglect. My name. You're being lazy." Something in me just snapped. It wasn't a gradual break. It was a total collapse of every good girl instinct I had. "Leave me alone," I screamed. I didn't even know I had that much air in my lungs. She froze. She looked at me like I'd just sprouted a second head. "I have been up since 6 in the morning." I yelled. My voice was cracking, half sobbing, half screaming. "I am sick. You know I'm sick. I haven't eaten. I haven't showered. I've been doing your job for 8 hours while you slept. Where were you? Where were the adults?" I saw my brother and sister peek out of their rooms, looking annoyed. "And you?" I pointed at them. "You're 20. You're 19. You watched me struggle all morning and didn't lift a finger. I taught myself how to be responsible. I taught myself how to care. You didn't teach me that, Mom. You just gave me a list of chores and went back to sleep." My mom's face went from shock to pure, cold anger. "Don't you dare speak to me about respect," she started. "Respect is earned," I screamed back. I grabbed my towel and a change of clothes from the dryer. "I'm done. I'm a child. I'm 14. Figure it out yourself." I ran into the bathroom and slammed the door. I locked it. I heard her yelling on the other side about disrespect and consequences. I heard my sister calling me a dramatic brat. Now, I've been in here for over an hour. I took a shower, and it was the first time I felt like a human being in days. But now that the adrenaline is gone, the guilt is heavy. My mom does work hard. She provides for us. And yelling at your parents is a big no-no in this house. But I'm looking at my reflection, and I see a kid who is exhausted. I see a kid who was left alone to handle a situation that was too big for her. My siblings are texting the group chat right now, saying I've crushed Mom's spirit and that she's crying in her room. They're saying I'm self-centered because I didn't think about how tired she was. Am I the a-hole? Did I overreact? Or is it actually insane to expect a sick 14-year-old to be a full-time nanny for 8 hours straight? Update. I didn't expect things to get worse after I locked myself in the bathroom. At that point, I honestly thought the screaming match was the peak of it, that maybe everyone would cool off. Maybe someone would finally notice how sick I actually was. Instead, the atmosphere outside that door turned colder in a way I didn't know a home could feel. It wasn't loud fighting anymore. It was quieter than that, which somehow made it worse. The group chat messages didn't stop. My brother sent paragraphs about how stressed Mom already was and how I had embarrassed her. My sister added that I always play the victim whenever I don't want to help. Neither of them asked how I was feeling or whether I needed medicine. They talked about me like I wasn't even in the house, like I was some inconvenience ruining their day. I tried to stand up after sitting on the bathroom floor for so long and nearly blacked out. My legs felt hollow, like they didn't belong to me anymore. The fever had climbed higher. I could feel heat radiating off my skin in waves. Every breath felt thick and heavy, and my head throbbed so hard it hurt to blink. I remember staring at the sink and realizing I couldn't remember the last time I had actually drunk water. Outside, life continued normally. I could hear the little kids running again, furniture scraping, cartoons blasting from the TV. No one knocked to check on me. No one asked if I needed help. At some point, my mom walked past the bathroom door while talking on the phone, loudly explaining to someone how I had thrown a tantrum because I didn't want responsibilities. Hearing that while curled up on the tile made something inside me sink. I stopped feeling angry and started feeling invisible. Time blurred after that. I must have dozed off because I woke up shivering even though sweat had soaked through my shirt. My teeth were chattering, which didn't make sense because my skin felt like it was burning. When I tried to sit upright, nausea hit so hard I barely made it to the toilet before throwing up. That was the moment I realized something was actually wrong beyond just being sick. I unlocked the bathroom door and stepped into the hallway. The lights felt too bright. Sound felt sharp, like everything was turned up too high. My brother was sitting on the couch scrolling on his phone. He glanced up, frowned, and asked why I looked so pale, but the tone sounded annoyed more than concerned. I told him I felt really bad and thought I needed a doctor. He shrugged and said Mom was already upset and I should apologize first before making things worse. I went to Mom's room anyway. She was lying on her bed watching videos, eyes red like she had been crying, but the second she saw me, she looked irritated again. I tried to explain that my head hurt and I couldn't stop shaking. She told me to take medicine and rest, that everyone gets fevers and I wasn't dying. Then she reminded me I still needed to help clean the mess from earlier because guests might come later. Something in me just shut down at that point. I nodded even though I knew I couldn't stand long enough to clean anything. I went back to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my phone for a long time trying to decide if calling someone else would make things worse. I ended up calling my aunt. She's my mom's older sister, and I almost hung up before she answered because I felt guilty bothering her. When she picked up, I tried to sound normal, but my voice cracked halfway through the first sentence. She immediately noticed something was wrong. I told her I had a fever and felt dizzy and that everyone was mad at me. I didn't even mean to cry, but once I started I couldn't stop. She didn't argue or lecture. She just said she was coming. I don't remember much about the time between that call and her arrival. I lay down and drifted in and out of sleep. At some point someone turned the TV louder. The little kids ran into my room and jumped on the bed until I told them to leave because my head hurt. They got bored quickly and left. No adult came to check why I wasn't moving. When my aunt finally arrived, everything changed fast. She walked into my room and immediately touched my forehead. Her expression shifted so quickly it scared me. She asked how long I had been this hot. I didn't know. She asked if I had eaten. I shook my head. She asked where my medication was and I couldn't answer because I hadn't been given any besides one random tablet earlier that morning. She helped me sit up and I nearly collapsed against her. That's when she raised her voice for the first time, calling for my mom. The house suddenly filled with tension again. My mom came in irritated, asking why my aunt was acting dramatic. My aunt told her my fever was dangerously high and that I needed a hospital. Mom brushed it off at first, saying I always exaggerate when I don't want to do chores. My aunt didn't argue long. She grabbed my shoes herself and helped me toward the door. I remember my brother muttering that this was unnecessary and my sister rolling her eyes like this was some performance. The car ride felt unreal. The outside world looked blurry through the window. My aunt kept asking me questions to keep me awake, and I struggled to answer. At one point, she pulled over just to check my temperature again and swore under her breath when she saw the number. I don't remember the exact reading, only the fear in her face. By the time we reached the ER, I was barely steady on my feet. The waiting room lights felt blinding. Nurses took one look at me and brought me in quickly after hearing my temperature. I remember being laid on a bed and someone putting a cold cloth on my forehead. Everything after that came in fragments, voices, machines beeping, questions I struggled to answer. Then the nurse asked where my parent was. My aunt explained she was my guardian temporarily, but not my legal parent, so they needed my mom present for consent forms and treatment decisions. My aunt called her immediately. From what I overheard, my mom sounded annoyed, asking why this had become such a big deal. She arrived about 40 minutes later. She walked into the ER looking frustrated, like she expected to deal with a misbehaving child. That attitude lasted about 10 seconds. The doctor explained my temperature, dehydration, and signs that the infection had progressed further than it should have because it hadn't been treated earlier. The shift in her expression was noticeable. Suddenly, she started explaining that she didn't realize I was this sick, that I hadn't told her properly, that teenagers exaggerate sometimes, and she thought it was minor. The doctor didn't accept that explanation politely. He asked directly how long I had been running a high fever without medical care. My aunt answered before my mom could. The room went quiet in a heavy way. The doctor's tone turned firm, explaining that delaying treatment at that level of fever could have become dangerous very quickly. Other family members had arrived by then, because my aunt had called them out of fear. Instead of defending my mom, they started questioning her. Voices rose in the hallway. Relatives asked why a 14-year-old had been responsible for multiple children while sick. Someone mentioned that this wasn't the first time responsibilities had been pushed onto me. My mom tried to maintain control of the situation, insisting she had misunderstood and that I should have communicated better. No one agreed with her. The tension built until she started crying loudly, saying everyone was attacking her and that she was being made to look like a bad parent over a simple misunderstanding. The dramatic shift felt uncomfortable even through my fever haze. Nurses asked everyone to lower their voices because it was disturbing other patients. Eventually, she left the room in tears, still insisting I had overreacted and embarrassed her. I heard her in the hallway telling someone that teenagers nowadays are too sensitive and that this situation had been blown out of proportion. Meanwhile, doctors focused on treating me. I was given fluids, medication, and monitored for several hours. As the fever slowly began to come down, the world stopped spinning quite as violently. Exhaustion replaced panic. My aunt stayed beside the bed the entire time, answering questions, holding my hand when chills hit again. My mom didn't come back into the room before I was discharged. I later learned she left the hospital after another argument with relatives, saying she refused to be humiliated further. She told people I would realize later how dramatic I had been. When it was finally time to leave, my aunt signed the remaining paperwork and took me home with her instead of returning me to my house. No one argued about it. I was too tired to process anything except relief when I lay down in her spare room and the house stayed quiet. The difference felt unreal. No yelling. No accusations. Someone checked my temperature every few hours. Someone reminded me to drink water. Someone brought soup without acting like it was a favor that needed repayment. Lying there, I kept replaying the day in my head. The yelling, the bathroom floor, the ER lights, my mom's voice insisting everything was exaggerated even while doctors explained how serious it had been. The guilt that had weighed on me earlier started to feel misplaced. I hadn't screamed because I wanted attention. I had screamed because I was overwhelmed and sick and alone in a house full of people who chose not to see it. I don't know what happens next. I know my mom is still angry. My siblings are still messaging me about apologizing. But for the first time since getting sick, my body feels like it's finally allowed to rest, and I'm starting to understand that expecting care when you're ill isn't selfish. I was 14, burning with fever, and asking for help shouldn't have turned into a family war just to be taken seriously. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update for more such stories.